financial stability. They care more about, having their own lives and their freedom than traditional marriage than it used to be. So it's just a big change of society today.
And Charlie Downs, does that matter? Are there negatives to being focused on career and choosing to shack up as opposed to get married in church?
Very much so. I mean, I like to think that I am slightly swimming against the tide because, there we go, I got married at the beginning of last month, and I'm 24.
Aww.
And the last time that the average age of marriage in this country was 24 was 60 years ago. The average age of marriage now is about 33 years old, which is a historic high. And I think this is largely because of the reasons that Pastor Mark outlined just now, which is that we don't actually understand as young people what marriage is.
GB News, the People's Channel.
All too often, people will be sitting at home watching a press conference live, and they'll hear loads of questions being asked, and they'll be thinking, that's not my question. That's not my concern.
We don't care whose feathers we ruffle. We ask the questions that you want answering.
You're all standing on the street protesting and wanted to have an open discussion.
My name is Patrick Christie's. I do a show for GB News in the UK. Is it possible to talk to you quickly?
Journalism in this country has been a cosy world full of groupthink until now.
Well, this is the best view ever of Whitehall, looking out across all the tractor drivers of England who've come together to make their point.
Hello, so as you can see, I'm here in Westminster as the protest begins.
Yes, I'm very much in the thick of it.
Look, we're challenging narratives here at GB News, and that's what sets us apart.
Good morning, 9:30 on Monday the 1st of December, live across the UK, Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
Well, did the Chancellor mislead Parliament?
Black hole left to me by the previous Conservative government.
£22 billion black hole in the public finances. A £22 billion hole in the public finances now.
Well, some anonymous cabinet ministers have claimed that Sir Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves misled cabinet to justify budget tax rises. The Prime Minister will defend her later this morning, but remember when he said this in August last year.
I'm absolutely determined to restore honesty and integrity to government.
And even more trouble for Labour as one of their MPs, Tulip Siddiq, has been sentenced to 2 years in prison in Bangladesh.
Elsewhere, senior SAS figures defend the regiment as a High Court inquiry into alleged war crimes releases some damning claims.
Well, a Special Forces whistleblower said he provided the commanders of Special Forces with explosive evidence of criminal behaviour, but claims that was never acted on.
And our second city is in even more chaos as agency workers join Birmingham's bin strike as the rubbish continues to pile up since February.
Yeah, agency workers joining council bin workers for the first time, taking their march to the council workers, telling them to get back around the negotiating table.
And it's the first day of December and 235,000 Christmas lights are switched on one house in Bristol over the weekend. And it's all to raise money for the fantastic taxi charity for military veterans. And they'll be joining us live in the studio. And also on this morning's show, you can find out why Daddy Pig, Peppa Pig's father, has been dragged through the mud.
As ever, we want to hear what you think. Send your views, post your comments by visiting
gbnews.com/your say. But first, here's the 60-second news update with Sam Francis.
Very good morning to you, 9:30. The headlines this hour. Sir Keir Starmer is backing Rachel Reeves' budget today with a fresh push on welfare reform, even as she faces claims she misled voters over the state of the public's finances. He'll warn later the system is trapping people in poverty and out of work, and defends scrapping the two-child benefit cap, which Labour says will lift almost 500,000 children out of poverty. Explosive evidence at the Afghanistan inquiry. A senior special forces officer says one UK unit used kill counts and trigger time to judge themselves. It's alleged that detainees were executed and toddlers shot in their beds. Birmingham's bin dispute is escalating as agency workers now hired to cover striking crews have joined the picket lines. Unite says bullying, harassment and blacklisting claims mean walkouts could stretch beyond May's local elections. Labour MP Tulip Siddique has been sentenced in her absence to 2 years in prison in Bangladesh. It's over corruption allegations that she rejects. Senior UK lawyers have condemned the case as politically driven. She is expected to continue serving as an MP. Extreme flooding, meanwhile, in Indonesia has now killed at least 500 people, more than 500 more still missing, and thousands are cut off without food or clean water after weeks of extreme rain across Asia. And the Oxford word of the year is rage bait. The phrase describes online posts designed to make you angry and drive engagement. Those are the headlines. Plenty of rage bait now with Andrew and Miriam.
Tune into GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Hello, good morning and welcome. You're watching and listening to Britain's Newsroom, and we're live across the United Kingdom on GB News with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
And it's very Christmassy.
It is.
Like the Christmas tree? Can we see? There they are.
First, Mark wasn't quite ready to appear in front of the
Researching.
Yes, exactly. Very nice. Well, it is December the 1st. It's the first day of Advent. So if you've got your Advent calendar, you can open the first window.
Very nice it is.
It's
I haven't
beautiful.
actually.
No, I haven't either. But we have got a very special Advent calendar here on GB News that will be coming up. Well, not such a great weekend for Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves, Andrew, being accused of misleading the Cabinet by claiming there was this supposed black hole in the public finances.
It is an astonishing story, isn't it? £22 billion. I don't think we should even use the word misleading. I think she lies. I think the Prime Chancellor lied to Parliament. She lied to the Cabinet. Her own Cabinet are saying we were misled. They didn't tell us the true scale of the financial... The black hole was nothing like as big. And what we know, Miriam, is she went on about the black hole because she wanted to raise taxes to pay for extra benefit spending.
Well,
that's what this is about.
Do you remember she gave that extraordinary speech and press conference on the 5th, I think it was the 5th of November. We covered it. It was during our show.
Yeah.
And I read that back last night. She didn't use the word black hole. However, she did say that the downturn in productivity was going to reduce tax receipts. Well, she'd just been told that the tax receipts into the HMRC were much higher than expected. So she didn't claim there's a black hole, but on the other hand, she did mislead people.
And the tax receipts were higher because people have got higher wages and also because of inflation.
That's right.
Which is much higher than it's supposed to be. It's nearly 4% instead of 2%. So more tax came in. So she deceived Parliament, she deceived the Cabinet, and ultimately she deceived all of us.
But also, some commentators are saying, well, actually, the state of the public finances is actually quite rosy. But that's not true at all either. All the OBR was saying is that day-to-day spending is not quite as tight as they thought. The long-term outlook is still terrible. So you could argue that she still had to raise taxes anyway because there would be a shortfall in future if she didn't.
Yeah, and of course she did the broadcast range, but I just think she was terribly unconvincing.
I think she's terrified. I think she's having a really, really difficult time, and she doesn't know what's going to happen next.
She certainly doesn't. But let's talk to the political strategist, Stuart Thompson, who joins us now. Stuart, the question on everyone's lips is, can she survive? And should she?
Absolutely she can. Well, look, she can. I think you rightly summarised some of those previous comments back that she made where she didn't talk about black holes. This is about political choice. I mean, budgets are always down to political choices, and politicians will always give you their version of events. And that's exactly what she's done here. She's painted the picture that allows her to talk about and put out the budget and the policies that she wanted to put out last week, which is where it is. Now, we can all then have a debate about whether the policies that she put forward are the right ones. And that's exactly why shows like this are great, because you can really, talk those through in some more detail. But they're political choices, and politicians live and die by those choices.
I think, Stuart, what's difficult to understand is in that scene-setter speech, as it is called, on the 5th of November, although she didn't explicitly say there was a black hole, she did very strongly imply that the OBR's forecasts were going to be much worse than previously, that the financial situation was worse than it had been. Now, we know now that firstly isn't true, but also she'd already been told that tax receipts were much higher than expected. I think that's the difficult thing to reconcile, is that she may not have explicitly claimed there was a black hole, but all the mood music coming out of the Treasury seems to be warning people that there were going to be huge tax rises on the way.
But politicians, or whatever announcement is going to be made, Miriam, whether it's a budget, whether it's a King's speech, whether it's, a big set piece announcement, a party conference, there is always the mood music that's set. And then suddenly the actual reality, the position that government wants to set out is explained to the public at large. And so, again, I don't think this is any different from, previous budgets or party conference speeches or anything along those sort of lines.
Well,
because
can
it
I just
then enabled
interrupt
her
you
to
there,
talk.
Stuart? Stuart, can I just jump in there? I do not recall a budget unravelling where, to the point, Monday after the Wednesday budget, 2 senior cabinet ministers quoted on the front page of the Times saying the Chancellor misled the cabinet. I've never heard of that in my life.
No, maybe not in those phrases, Andrew, no. But what you do, I remember pasty taxes and omni-shambles budgets, etc., where budgets would absolutely, key planks of budgets literally had to be abandoned days after they were announced by George Osborne and the then Conservative government and the coalition government. We're not in that same position. No, these policies aren't going to fall apart. And now we can have a debate about whether we think, lifting the two-child cap and taking nearly 500,000 children out of poverty is the right policy, whether freezing prescription charges is the right policy, whether that's a good use of money, whether freezing rail fares is a good use of money. We can have those discussions, but they're the policies.
And let's have that discussion, because the purpose of those policies is to reduce the cost of living. That's something that Rachel Reeves said was very important to her in her 5th of November speech and in the budget last Wednesday. But the specific moves that she's taken to freeze tax thresholds, to put up the minimum wage, which will have a direct impact on inflation, and therefore any energy savings that people enjoy will be far and away outweighed by food inflation, for example. The budget has directly increased the cost of living.
Well, again, it depends which bits of the budget you want to look at. You've picked on several there, Miriam. I'd look at, the rail costs. I'd look at taking the children out of poverty. I'd look at prescription charges. So, there will always be groups that do better, groups that do worse. That is the nature of politics. That is the nature of budgets. What won't change is that in 3.5 years, 2 years' time, whatever, there will be an election. And at that point, the electorate will look at the alternatives on offer, the record of the government, and will make their choices on the basis of the policies that have been undertaken. That fundamental doesn't change and, won't change after this budget, the next budget, or any future budgets as well.
All right, Stuart, that's Stuart Thompson, political strategist at Swarkins. We're going to go, just before we go to Birmingham, I just think the atmosphere in the House of Commons today will be fascinating. I'm going there this afternoon just to test the water. I think there'll be fury. When I spoke to a Labour MP yesterday, he said he's just in disbelief.
Yeah.
You can't believe it.
That's right, because they thought they had their win, which was the two-child benefit cap being scrapped. But then the next day there was the news, of course, about the Employment Rights Bill being watered down. Exactly. That's not going to please the Labour left. Will Keir Starmer's speech later on this morning about a benefit, a reform, that may inflame the Labour left even more? Depends what he says.
You see, I think the Tory charge stuck about this is a budget for Benefit Street, Welfare Street. I think that's really stuck. And Labour, and of course the big row about Reeves means the stuff Stuart was talking about, the freezing of train fares and the cut in energy bills, is not landing because people are thinking, has the Chancellor of the Exchequer? I mean, to mislead the entire country about the contents of your budget is staggering.
I know. And we were marched up the hill about basic rate tax rise and then marched down again. And some people are saying that actually even worse, perhaps, than misleading the public is misleading the markets, because that can be a criminal offence.
And people may think, so what if journalists are given false information? But some very illustrious, esteemed political editors were saying assertively there will be a 2p rise in income tax. They were briefed like that by the Treasury. And the point about media is it's not that we're so special we shouldn't be misled. That is how governments get their message across.
And if the media doesn't trust the government, it's then hard to see how they'll get any message across.
Absolutely. Look, we're going to go to Birmingham now, where bin strikes continue 8.5 months after council staff walked out. But for the first time, the agency staff brought in to cover those striking binmen are joining the picket line. Let's talk to our GB News national reporter, Will Godfrey. Will, what a mess this is.
Well, Andrew, we are on the march now with bin workers employed by the council for the first time today, agency workers who are joining this picket line over claims of bullying. The council refute those claims. But let's speak to some of the people on the picket now. Now you can hear some of the chances. Tan, you are a bin worker on strike today. Why is it important you're here today?
It's very important for every one of us to be here. To take a pay cut of £8,000 is just not on. The council need to come to negotiations and sort this strike out once and for all.
And Mike, why are you here today?
I'm here to support fellow bin workers and also agency who have come out today. They're sick to death of being targeted, bullied, victimised by this bloke on the front of this picture, on the front of this banner. He's the one that started the victimisation and the bullying, and it needs to stop now. Victory to the Birmingham bin workers.
Now, the council have told us that they don't think that there's any bullying in place. What would you say to that statement?
That's absolute rubbish. If they'd have come down to Perry Bar this morning, if they come down to town today, they would see the absolute support for every single agency worker that's come out. There is victimisation, there is bullying going on, and if they get back around the table, they would understand exactly how this is affecting people.
OK, and Danny, quickly, as a representative from Unite the Union, what's important for you today with this march?
It's just to raise more awareness, really, and obviously, you know, put pressure on the council to get them round the table. That's what we want. We want to negotiate so we can finish this strike.
Well, you can see here from this march taking place today that the bin workers want this strike to come to an end. They want to get back to work. They want to collect rubbish here. All they need to do that is the council to come back to the negotiating table. They've told us in a statement that they feel that they have given some offers to Unite the Union who have refused them, and that they are disappointed that this strike is still ongoing.
Well, thank you, Will. And what an ongoing story.
Unbelievable. That's our second city in the grip of an 8.5-month refuse strike. It must be so unhealthy and unhygienic.
Yeah.
Disgusting.
Fed up. Well, a spokesperson for Birmingham City Council said, while we're disappointed the dispute has not been resolved as Unite has rejected all our offers, we're continuing to make regular waste collections and our contingency plan is working. We have been collecting an average of approximately 1,330 tonnes of curbside waste every day, more than we did prior to industrial action. And over the last 6 months, we've collected over 100,000 tonnes of curbside waste.
So those two sides are no closer to an agreement, are they? Now, still ahead, find out why Justice Secretary David Lammy has been warned that scrapping jury trials is a major threat to free speech.
And up next, the SAS fight back against damning claims into war crimes committed in Afghanistan.
First, if you want some of that elusive holiday sun, here's the forecast.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hi there. If you're off to the Mediterranean in the next few days, there will be a lot of dry weather to be enjoyed, but there will also be some heavy showers in places. And across Iberia and Madeira, we have got this cold front pushing through on Tuesday, so some gusty winds and heavy rain for a time. Thunderstorms following to Portugal as well. Otherwise, across the central Med, there will be some scattered heavy showers and thunderstorms, but mostly dry across Greece and Turkey, some warm spells of sunshine here, and quite a changeable outlook for the rest of the week, but temperatures around average.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Meghan coaching the world on keeping relationships warm is a plot twist. I mean, she treats relationships like seasonal decorations. They're out by January. I think that this is such a joke. But this ultimately, we know that this exists because she's trying to drive traffic to the retail arm, which is as ever. But how successful truly is As Ever, and how much does Netflix really believe in As Ever when they're not even featuring her products in their upcoming pop-up stores this season?
And genuinely, it kind of pains me to attack other women publicly. It's not something I make a habit of. And I've tried with her. I've tried. I was so happy on the wedding day, and I really wanted her to be successful. But she has tested the patience of everybody watching from this country. We just wanted to do something of meaning and substance. And what I wanted her to only ever do, Kinsey, was be an actress, because she was actually really blooming good at that. She's really good in Suits. She should just go back to acting, shouldn't she, and stop trying to be this lifestyle guru.
If she was that good at acting, we wouldn't be so offended by her lifestyle pursuits, really. But, you know, I think I'm with you. I loved Meghan Markle. In fact, my first podcast was called In Defense of Meghan Markle. That didn't last very long. I think the reason that you and I are frustrated by her is because she looks to be destructive towards the British royal family, to critique the British royal family, to tear them down, but also wants the perks, continues to utilize that title, and continues to utilize that proximity to create professional opportunities for herself and to monetize her lifestyle. And that's not fair. If these people are so terrible that on Christmas Day, you won't be speaking to them or your own family.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
It's 10 to 10. Good morning. You're watching and listening to Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Now, the Director of UK Special Forces made a conscious decision to cover up potential war crimes in Afghanistan, an inquiry has been told. The Afghanistan inquiry, which investigates alleged unlawful killings by UK Special Forces between 2010 and 2013, has released more summaries of the closed hearings.
Well, our Home and Security Editor, Mark White, joins us in the studio now to take us through the updates. Bring us up to date, Mark.
Well, this is a High Court inquiry, and because of the sensitive nature of who we're dealing with here, Special Forces, a lot of the evidence is being heard in private, and including the evidence from this whistleblower, a former senior officer in Special Forces, who said that he had highlighted potential issues of criminality that were taking place in Afghanistan. This was back in 2011, February of 2011. He said he'd become aware of what looked like a bit of an anomaly with a significant number of deaths, kills by the regiment in Afghanistan, but alongside that, very few weapons being recovered, which you would expect if you are taking out insurgents, Taliban fighters and the like. That would be the result. He said there was one particular incident where in a nighttime operation, 9 alleged members of the Taliban were killed, only 3 weapons were recovered. There's that kind of thing that was raising his suspicions. He says he raised that up the chain to the director, the head of UK Special Forces, and subsequently his replacement a year later was also informed about this. But according to this whistleblower, he said that they did nothing, that it was effectively a cover-up, that all the director of UK Special Forces did, when he should have actually, according to this whistleblower, have referred it to the Royal Military Police. Instead of doing that, he instigated an internal inquiry into the tactics used by the regiments out there in Afghanistan at the time. Now, there's part of this testimony is to say it's was heard in secret, parts of it redacted, but the High Court have released some of this, and it's worth, I think, just giving you an insight into some of the testimony from this Special Forces senior officer, now former senior officer. He said, I'm fiercely loyal to UK Special Forces, all of it, every unit in UK Special Forces. And I believe that loyalty is about doing the right thing, not necessarily the easy thing. But referring to these incidents, we spoke of a number of different incidents in his testimony. He said it's not special, it's not elite, it's not what we stand for. And most of us, I don't believe, would either wish to condone it or to cover it up. And he finishes by saying it's not loyalty to your organisation to stand by and to watch it go down a sewer. So that's his testimony. Clearly there will be, and there are people on the other side giving a counter narrative to this, believe that those SAS troops were doing the right thing. They were fighting a very, very difficult campaign against effectively an insurgent force where you don't know in these villages, in these tribal villages, who is actually a member of the Taliban, who is a villager. It can be very difficult to tell, and the old fog of war, as it's been known as, is very, very apparent there. But as I say, this is the Afghan inquiry into alleged war crimes. It's continuing at the High Court.
All right, Mark, that's Mark White, our Home Security Editor. This could lead to prosecutions, and if it leads to prosecutions, that would be even worse for military
Absolutely, or
recruitment.
adds to their recruitment crisis. Well, coming up, the Prime Minister is going to defend his Chancellor against accusations that she deceived the Cabinet. Will this be their last stand? Find out very shortly.
This is Britain's Newsroom.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good morning and welcome to your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. It's much milder out there today, but it's a wet and windy start to the week with coastal gales, and there's an amber warning for heavy rain in place across parts of Wales this morning. So a wet and blustery picture for many parts of England and Wales, southern and eastern parts of Scotland as well. That rain particularly heavy out towards the west. The higher ground of Wales and western parts of England could easily see 100 millimetres of rain by the end of today. That's almost half a month's worth of rain falling in some spots. Brighter for some across parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland as well. Some sunshine here, but also a few showers. But it's the winds in the south that will also make it feel pretty unpleasant. Gales around the coasts. Despite temperatures reaching 13 or 14 degrees, it's going to feel pretty unpleasant. And there will be further spells of pretty heavy rain through the course of this evening, particularly across the West Country, parts of Wales as well. Those bright shades of colour on the map here indicate some really intense downpours, so some flooding on the roads and some transport disruption is quite likely. Do keep an eye on our weather warnings and leave yourself extra time for your commute home this evening. Something a little bit drier across parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland to end the day. Some clearer skies here too, but also the chances of some showers. Winds easing down across Scotland and Northern Ireland, but it will stay pretty blustery across many parts of England and Wales. Further spells of rain through the course of this evening, but the weather warnings will elapse as we go through the early hours of Tuesday morning. And by the end of the night, the heaviest and the most persistent rain will probably be confined to some northeastern coastal parts of the UK. So turning drier and clearer, and a colder night to come, although generally speaking staying just about frost-free. Now for Tuesday, it's looking a lot drier and brighter for many parts of the UK. There will be some showers around, and those will be fairly frequent in some southern and western areas. The risk of some hail and thunder, as well as that across the northwest of Scotland, will have some fairly strong and blustery southwesterly winds. But eastern parts of the UK may well stay largely dry, with some sunny spells, and temperatures on Tuesday around average for the time of year, highs of 10 or 11 degrees.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
Thank you, Britain, for sharing over 5 million comments on your say. Because when you talk, we listen.
Good morning, this is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. The A76 at Bowhouse Crossroads remains closed following severe flooding. Earlier issues on the M4 eastbound between junctions 33 and 32 have now been resolved. On the A38 southbound in Derbyshire, current 20-minute delays are anticipated to subside shortly. In West Sussex, a collision on the A23 northbound has resulted in all lanes being closed, with motorists facing delays of approximately 40 minutes. Rail travellers should note that Avanti West Coast is experiencing weather-related delays, and there are also disruptions affecting cross-country services at Newport in South Wales. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
It's the greatest cash prize of a Great British giveaway so far. A simply stunning £85,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like, making 2026 your greatest year to date. That could get you that brand new car, extend and improve your home, take you away on that bucket list holiday, or just give you some peace of mind over the coming months. For a chance to win £85,000 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB18 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 30th of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning, it's 10 o'clock on Monday the 1st of December. We're live across the United Kingdom. This is Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cakes.
It's the question everybody's asking, did the Chancellor mislead us?
Hole left to me by the previous Conservative government.
£22 billion black hole in the public finances. A £22 billion hole in the public finances now.
Cabinet Ministers claim Sir Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves misled the Cabinet to justify the budget tax rises, but the Prime Minister will defend her later this morning. But remember when he said this in August last year?
I'm absolutely determined to restore honesty and integrity to government.
And more trouble for Labour as one of their MPs, Tulip Siddiq, has been sentenced to 2 years in prison in Bangladesh.
The second city is in chaos as agency workers join Birmingham's bin strike as the rubbish continues to pile up. It's now lasted 8.5 months.
Elsewhere, senior SAS figures defend the regiment as a High Court inquiry into alleged war crimes releases some damning claims about the war in Afghanistan.
How festive is this? 235,000 Christmas lights were switched on one house in Bristol over the weekend, and it's all to raise money for that fantastic taxi charity for military veterans, who'll be joining us shortly.
Can't believe, Andrew, the budget story, because normally at this point after a budget the news cycle would have moved on, or in the case of George Osborne's omni-shambles budget, we'd be working out what's happening to the pasty tax. But actually the commentary is not really about what's in the budget anymore, it's about the lead up to it.
Well, which was chaotic. And again, she's set the scene for tax rises because we were told about the massive black hole in our finances, which wasn't there. So did she exaggerate it last year too?
Well, that's a big question, isn't it? But the thing is, what that I don't understand is, all this information from the ABR about tax receipts, about the deficit, it's all published. Like, it's not secret. So I don't understand.
It was going to be a matter of time before somebody read it.
So the whole thing does not quite make sense yet. Maybe it will become clear.
Now, also, we want you to find out why Daddy Pig, Peppa Pig's father, has been dragged through the mud.
Well, we'd love to hear what you think about that and all the other topics we're covering today. Send your views and post your comments to
gbnews.com/your say. But first, here's the news with Sam Francis.
Very good morning to you. Just after 10 o'clock. Well, the top story this hour, Sir Keir Starmer is defending his budget today, signalling a major new push on welfare reform. But that's as pressure mounts over claims Rachel Reeves misled the public about the state of the finances. The Prime Minister will argue today that the welfare system is trapping young people out of work after Labour's earlier U-turn on disability reforms left a £4 billion gap in budget plans. Sir Keir Starmer will hail the scrapping, though, of the two-child limit, expected to lift 450,000 children out of poverty, while urging his party to back further reforms. But attacks continue, with Conservatives accusing Rachel Reeves of deceiving voters, and senior Labour MPs briefing that the budget process was a disaster from start to finish. Explosive evidence at the Afghanistan inquiry as a senior Special Forces officer alleges that UK troops committed war crimes, including executing detainees and killing women and children during night raids. The whistleblower, known as N1466, says some soldiers judge themselves by kill numbers and trigger time, calling the culture a stain on Britain's armed forces. He told the inquiry, "Our forebearers will look back with shame." One elite unit, UK SF1, is accused of covering up unlawful killings, including toddlers shot in their beds. In Birmingham, a new wave of disruption is hitting the city as agency workers hired to cover striking bin crews have now joined the strike themselves. Unite says agency staff are walking out over bullying, harassment and fears of blacklisting, with numbers growing daily. Directly employed bin workers have already been striking since January, a dispute that could now run beyond next year's local elections. Labour MP Tulip Siddique has been sentenced in Bangladesh to 2 years in prison for alleged corruption, a case she strongly denies and is unlikely to serve. She was convicted in her absence of influencing her aunt, the former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, to secure land for her family. Accusations, she says, are politically motivated. Here, ministers in the UK have said the trial lacked due process, with senior lawyers warning it failed basic standards of fairness. A danger to life warning is in force across much of Wales, with forecasters saying a month's worth of rain could fall in just 24 hours. The Met Office has extended its amber alert until midnight, warning of fast-flowing or deep floodwater, major disruption and even landslides on ground that's already saturated. Up to 120 millimetres of rain is expected on higher ground, with widespread totals of 40 to 80 millimetres, and yellow warnings stretching across England, Wales and southwest Scotland. Virgin Media has today been fined £24 million for disconnecting vulnerable customers during its switch from analogue to digital landlines. Ofcom says the company put thousands of telecare users at direct risk of harm after failing to identify those relying on emergency alarm systems and cutting them off if they didn't engage in the migration process. Virgin Media now says that it's overhauled its procedures following what it calls a comprehensive review and insists customer safety is its top priority. Well, an update on the situation in Indonesia, where the death toll there following devastating floods has now climbed to more than 500, with a further 500 people still missing after exceptional tropical cyclones triggered landslides and widespread destruction. Rescue teams are battling to reach cut-off communities in Sumatra, where thousands are running out of food and clean water. Severe storms have been battering much of Southeast Asia this month, with more than 900 lives lost across the region. And if social media is making your blood boil, well, you might be a victim of rage bait, Oxford's word of the year. The phrase describes a post designed purely to provoke outrage and drive clicks. Use of rage bait tripled in the past year, reflecting what linguists say is a shift from curiosity-driven clickbait to algorithms amplifying anger. It beat aura farming and biohack to the top title, while Cambridge chose parasocial and Collins went for vibe coding, all capturing the strains of a life lived online. What a load of nonsense. Those are the latest headlines. I'm off to reflect. See you soon.
Hello, good morning. Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom. We're live across the United Kingdom on GB News with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
We've got lots of texts and emails coming in, I imagine.
We have lots of comments. Lee says, Andrew, if you come to Birmingham, it's becoming one big cesspit. Major roads are still flooded after 3 weeks. Potholes are now like manholes. It's obviously not just the bins.
Disgusting, isn't it?
But Birmingham Council is bankrupt, I think, isn't it?
It is bankrupt. It's the largest local authority in Europe. It's bankrupt. It's had a bin strike for 8.5 months. I don't understand why we've got a Labour government. Why they don't send a cabinet minister in there to knock this council's heads together and get it sorted?
I agree. People are paying all that council tax.
Yeah.
And what for?
Well, I imagine some people are withholding it, Miriam.
Well, they might be.
I would never encourage people to break the law, but you would understand why, wouldn't you?
You absolutely would. Well, back onto the budget. Tony says there's a lot of speculation as to whether or not Reeves and Starmer will survive this latest example of Labour corruption. We need to accept the fact that she will. Well, we see. OK, well, big treat for you now. We're going across live to a speech by the journalist... live to Kemi Badenoch, who's speaking to the financial journalist Liam Halligan about the budget.
Have experience in creating growth. We know where money comes from. The party that's running the country right now thinks money grows on trees. What we saw was a budget for benefits, not a budget for growth. And I think, given the state of the economy, it was disgraceful that we ended up with the OBR and the IFS saying that household incomes were going down and it was absolutely dismal for growth. But what has been most extraordinary has been what we've seen in the last few days, which is that the Chancellor appears to have given wrong or false information deliberately to try and get her budget a soft landing. We are at the Institute for Accounting. You all know that if a CEO had done this before their annual meeting, they would be sacked. And that is why Mel has written to the Financial Conduct Authority, the right place, to make sure that this is properly investigated. What we see is issues around financial probity and market abuse. And I do believe that she should resign because of that, because she has given false information, broken promise after promise, given people false hope and false reasons to vote Labour, not been able to stick to them. What she's shown is that she cannot manage the economy. So I'm very happy to be combative in that circumstance. I think the circumstances actually demand combativeness.
Mel Stride, you've been an MP since 2010. You are the MP for Central Devon, the Shadow Chancellor. You also have a business background. You've built and sold businesses on both sides of the Atlantic. Tell us about the big macro picture here. Tell us how and why the Tories have come to the point where you are now pledging £47 billion of welfare savings. And I suggest after the last budget, that figure may actually go up.
So, well, good morning, everybody. Look, I think the answer to the challenges that we face as a country, not just economic challenges, but other challenges around defence and so on, is growth and productivity growth. And that's what we've got to get the solution for. What you've seen in this budget is no growth at all, really. I mean, after this first year, which is actually a downgrade on the growth number from the budget last year, growth in every year of this forecast is down on the spring. And that's not by accident. That's because of the wrong economic choices. So what the Chancellor has done is to load up taxes in breach of her manifesto and the promises that she's made on hard-working people. So we've seen that with the income tax threshold freezes. And instead spend money raised through that taxes on more welfare. And that is at the heart of the socialist way, because that is about redistribution and resources, which is important in economics, but also important in economics is incentives. And what you shouldn't be doing is loading up taxes on the productive part of the economy whilst redistributing to the unproductive part of the economy. And this is a long-standing picture that we've seen with this government. When they came into office, the first thing they did, despite the fact they said they wouldn't do it, was heap £40 billion worth of extra taxes on the economy, 25 billion of it through NICs increases.
But that's Mel Stride talking to the financial journalist Liam Halligan. We're going to talk to an economist, Andrew Lillicoe, about the aftermath of the budget. Andrew, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Just explain to some viewers may be confused, and listeners confused, why this budget has turned into such a horror show for the Chancellor and the Prime Minister.
Well, the big issue that's emerged over the past few days is that the Chancellor had said, both in public statements, in statements to the media, in fact, she set up a special press conference and in lots of briefings, that the OBR was going to project that the economy was going to do worse in the future, and the consequence of that was going to be less tax revenues coming in, more spending, and as a consequence, she was going to need to raise taxes. She set things up as if she were going to have to raise income tax, in fact, but more generally, she definitely suggested that she was going to have to raise taxes. Now, it turns out that despite the Treasury and her having said that for months, they'd known for months instead that the opposite was true, that the OBR was going to tell them that the finances had improved because inflation was a bit higher and so on. The tax revenues are coming in a little bit better than the OBR had expected. And the consequence of that was that they didn't need to actually raise taxes in the way that she suggested. Now, people are saying, well, hang on, you can't just go around telling everybody that that's going to happen, that that's the situation. People are going to, traders are going to go and they're going to buy stocks and shares, and pension funds are going to make decisions, and all kinds of things are going to happen in the real economy. People are going to leave on the basis of exit taxes. All kinds of things are suggested to have happened as a consequence of these briefings, when it turned out that they were completely untrue. And that looks very bad for her and for those associated with it. In fact, over the weekend as well, it suggested that even the cabinet felt that they were misled about this, which is pretty serious for her politically.
One of the points that the Chancellor did make there over the weekend was that even though the situation had improved compared to what had been predicted because of those increased tax receipts, as you said, a £4.2 billion headroom is still tiny compared to what the Chancellor believes that she needs in order to be able to ride out future fiscal shocks. So even had the Chancellor been clearer with the public and Parliament about the position, surely it's still the case that she would have wanted to raise taxes in order to give herself that headroom.
Well, she may well have chosen to raise taxes. That's her choice as a Chancellor. She could raise taxes for whatever reason she wanted. Chancellors quite often at this stage of Parliament raise taxes in order to set themselves up a war chest so they can cut taxes back closer to the election, and one suspects that was part of what she was doing here. So they can do those kinds of things. The problem is that if you give the impression that the official macroeconomic forecasts are going to be one thing, and then there's something else, then that's going to be very misleading to the public. That's sort of false, very market-sensitive data that you're giving out, which is going to lead to people making poor economic decisions.
Well, that's absolutely right, because some people may have took their money out of their pensions early because you can take your 25% out. But also, the information they were putting out before the budget, Andrew, I would have thought was affecting the way the markets were behaving.
It's undoubtedly so. You can see it in the market responses to the various things that happened. It's undoubtedly true that these things affected the markets. Back in the old days, people used to, even the tiniest breach of what was going to be in the budget led to chancellors resigning. Whereas these days, for many years now, it's not just Reeves. I would say that this is a kind of nadir of the whole process, but hopefully a nadir. But it's been going on for, a decade or more now, that you just have these extremely extensive briefings in the run-up to the budget about what's going to be in on it. So, which seems to me to be absolutely outrageous, because that means that if you happen to be the market trader who happens to be connected with whichever journalist the government officials choose to brief, you're going to have an advantage over everybody else. So it makes for all kinds of terrible opportunities for corruption, but it also distorts things. It means that who makes money and doesn't make money in financial markets is just a matter of the luck of the draw, of whoever you happen to be following on Twitter at the point that they make the announcement or something. I think we should get back to the days in which market-sensitive data like this is treated as market-sensitive and kept confidential until it's actually released in the budget. I work with market-sensitive matters all the time in regulation and other similar economic areas. I've never felt the need to discuss all of the things which I'm talking about, my emerging thinking and so on. In fact, if I did so, I'd not only get fired, I might even go to jail. I think that the whole process has become absolutely ridiculous for a number of years now.
And what do you think about the role of the OBR? Obviously, they made that embarrassing mistake on the day of the budget, accidentally publishing their report. But more widely, the role of the Chancellor now seems to be to keep the OBR happy, even though the OBR's forecasts are often not particularly accurate. Why should they be, I suppose some would say. But do you think the OBR itself has become too powerful?
I think the whole arrangement obviously has a fiasco element to it this year. Just the business with it being released 45 minutes early is obviously comically inept on all parts, and they're having an investigation about that. The process, I think that the OBR has been made too significant in the process, not through any fault of the OBR. That's the choice that chancellors have made. But the political process has led to a ridiculous situation in which everybody speculates about exactly what the difference is going to be between the OBR's forecast 4 years ahead and 5 years ahead. And whatever that tiny difference might be, then everything rests upon it. In the OBR, it's a hard business doing economic forecasting. Even over the short term, the OBR's record over, say, a year or 18 months is not very good at all. Once you go to 4 or 5 years ahead, it seems to me to be preposterous that our whole fiscal policy framework's based around that. You've sort of subcontracted all of these major political decisions out to a set of technocrats who didn't want the job, and the kinds of things they do aren't well equipped to deal with it. And then what we've done is to move on from that to then giving loads of briefings which are false about what the OBR is going to be saying, forcing the OBR ultimately into a position of trying to correct the record, which it felt it had to do, which creates this really strange clash between the OBR and the Treasury over the past few days. And I think the whole thing has become, I mean, it's been absurd for some time, but I think it's unsustainable at this point, and there'll have to be some kind of change.
All right, that's Andrew Lillicoat, the economist. Thanks so much for joining us. I've covered budget since 1988. I do not recall anything like this ever. It makes the row over the pasty tax, which had to be withdrawn, and the caravan tax withdrawn. Makes it like a tea party, a children's tea party.
It's because they were minor policies at the edge of the budget. They were embarrassing, but they weren't significant.
This is the core of the budget. Why she raised our taxes so much to pay for a massive expansion in welfare, but she claimed she was doing it because of a black hole that didn't exist.
But what's extraordinary is those taxes have not actually risen yet.
No.
They are forecast tax increases in 2 or 3 years' time.
Yeah.
She may decide, given that it's election year, not to go ahead with it.
I know.
But then the markets will be deeply unhappy because she's not paid for the increased spending.
But also, I just think people are going to struggle to think, can they believe a word the Chancellor says?
Well, nobody knows what's true anymore, do they? That's the difficult thing.
Now, just a reminder, friends of GB News can vote in today's You Decide poll by scanning the QR code now.
We're asking, do we need a new budget? So far, 98% have said yes, 2% have said no. I'm not sure I could cope with another one.
I know. Do you think Rachel Reeves is the 2%?
Probably. No. And the whole of the OBR. Maybe they're...
Yeah. And, of course, now it's time for a brand new Great British giveaway now, and your chance to win our biggest cash prize to date. It's all about Christmas, so stay tuned to see how you can win it.
It's the greatest cash prize of a Great British giveaway so far. A simply stunning £85,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like, making 2026 your greatest year to date. That could get you that brand new car, extend and improve your home, take you away on that bucket list holiday, or just give you some peace of mind over the coming months. For a chance to win £85,000 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB18 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 30th of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Well, coming up next, find out why a Labour MP has been sentenced to 2 years in jail in Bangladesh.
We'll be going through that and more with broadcasters Clem Woodard and Matthew Talbot. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News. It's our lovely Christmas.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Feet earlier this year as part of the first group to trek the same route as Lawrence of Arabia.
A former Special Forces officer, Howard Leedham, followed in Lawrence's footsteps across Saudi Arabia and Jordan in a 25-day journey. And I'm very happy to say he joins us now. Howard, thank you very much for coming to see us.
Thank you for having me on.
Now, talk us about what you're putting on, having completed that remarkable trek.
Well, we did the trek in January and February, and I was odd enough to lead a team of Special Forces Club members to do the entire route that Lawrence did in 1917. 685 miles, 1,100 kilometres, took us 25 days. We started off with 5 riders, 4 riders made it. And the last 9 days we spent in Jordan. And one of the things that in Saudi, we would basically follow Lawrence's route from water to water and go to the same wells that he had gone, because that's what they had to do, as they worked their way around the Nefed Desert. And then, obviously, when they came in towards Aqaba, because the guns in Aqaba all faced towards the sea, yeah. so they had to cross the uncrossable desert to get into the back of Aqaba. And when you come into Jordan, what strikes you is, because of the topography and because of the way that the history is so well recorded in that area, is that you can basically follow almost a precise route that he followed, and basically sleep in the same places that he slept. So you can really feel what they were doing and how they tactically moved down in order to take the port of Aqaba.
GB News, the People's Channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
10:24, Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Miriam. We've got the panel with us, Matthew Talbot and Claire Muldoon in the studio. We will be going to the Prime Minister's speech, which of course will be a great oratorical triumph, at some point during the programme.
You might surprise you, Andrew.
He would dumbfound me if he made a good speech. But we want to talk to you about Peppa Pig.
Yes, we've got a great story. So the Centre for Social Justice released a report last week about men in culture, and it's looking particularly at male role models in advertising, in media, in films. And there's been lots of complaints about Daddy Pig, who of course is Peppa Pig's father, that he's a little bit of a loser. Here's a little clip of Daddy Pig.
1, 2, 3, whoopla!
Now, I don't know if anybody else is a fan of Peppa Pig. I've seen more episodes than I care to remember. But Daddy Pig is a bit useless. He can't put a picture up. Mummy Pig has to do everything. He basically just lays on the sofa with a remote control. And Matthew, the concern is, so for our radio viewers and listeners even, we saw Daddy Pig attempt to flip a pancake and completely unsuccessfully hit the ceiling and stuck. But the concern is, Matthew, in this report, that actually in culture and media now, men are either portrayed as losers, like Daddy Pig, or violent and abusive. And where are boys supposed to get a strong, positive, masculine role model from?
Yeah, and I think we can all sort of laugh at the idea of a cartoon and things like Homer Simpson as well. I think for me as well, when we talk about kids at the moment, certainly young boys, they're being out-earned now by young girls. They're being outperformed at school. We have a whole spate of fatherless households, about 2.5 million households without fathers in them. I think for me the concern was always, you know, when I have kids, I think education is the great key to unlocking all aspects of social mobility, regardless of class, race and all manner of other things. And I think anytime there's an intelligent person portrayed in popular media, film or whatever else, they're always a geek. They're potentially a virgin. They're the butt of all jokes. And actually, it's the sort of jock, strong, thicko sort of type that is almost the cool, aspiring sort of person that you want to be like. And I think, therefore, the report itself, I think, is very useful because I thought Gareth Southgate spoke very well about this, the idea of role models and mentoring, and I'd not thought about that in my own life. My mum and dad used to work a lot, and I didn't see a lot of my dad. It's not that he didn't care, but he was out grafting early hours of the morning. And I think it was a lot of places where football coaches would step in, and I didn't realise that, and I almost looked up to them as people that I wished to be like, that I did think were good, that were cool, that were all these sorts of things. And I worry that without men like me, men like all of us that have a role, me and Andrew, very different types of men, doesn't make us any less masculine or male. We've got to step up.
Got to leave it there. We'll come back to that discussion because we're going to cross live to the Prime Minister, who's speaking in central London. Hold on to your hats.
This morning, they will be very proud to see you standing up here delivering those words. So really, really good, Miata. Thank you very much indeed. And thank you to all of you for joining us at the Coin Street Neighbourhood Centre. And you may have seen downstairs, there's a nursery. I've been down there with the young children this morning, seeing them and the staff and seeing how the staff guide them from, in this nursery, 9 months to 4 years. And it is a real reminder that learning begins at such an early age and what a difference it makes. And that giving our children the best start in life, unlocking their full potential, is so important to our country's future. And that is the purpose of this government in a nutshell. Now, I said it at Labour Party conference. We have a plan for a Britain that is built for all. And we're going to unlock the potential of every single person and community in this country. Because whether it's our public services that don't work, the cost of living crisis holding it back, or whole regions of our country ignored as sources of growth, in the end, it's all about potential. And that's why the budget was a moment of personal pride for me. I do not want to see a country where children grow up in poverty. I don't think anybody in this country wants that. It is a fundamental British belief that every child should go as far as their talent will take them. And poverty is a barrier to that. Just think about it. Think about the skipped meals, the cold bedrooms, the school uniform that is too small or worn through. And think about a 7-year-old in that situation, a young girl or boy, who still has to go to school and face the world's gaze. Are they ready to learn to the best of their ability? Are we giving them a fair and equal opportunity to succeed? I think it's abhorrent. The Tories raised child poverty by 900,000. 900,000 children. That is their worst legacy, bar none. It's not just abhorrent, it's also counterproductive. On Wednesday last week after the budget, the Chancellor and I went to a hospital and we were speaking to the staff who'd gathered there. And we told them that we're lifting the 2-child limit, and they cheered. And they did so and they said to us, that matters because you wouldn't believe how many children come through our doors of our hospital because of poverty. Poverty in Britain today. So this is a public services issue. It can help to lift the pressure on the NHS. It's an economic issue, a sound investment in our long-term potential. And it's a fairness issue. And this is what the Tories need to understand about the Britain that they built. 3/4 of children growing up in poverty today come from working families. Now, some of the parents I met downstairs, some of the parents I met in Rugby were on the road last Thursday. They told me, as so many parents do, that they're working harder and harder, but their wages struggle to meet their costs. And I know what that feels like. I remember my family sitting around the kitchen table, worrying about the bills, how are we going to pay them all? And we as a family couldn't pay them all. And that's why in our case, our phone was cut off. And that is still the reality of Britain for far too many people. And so, yes, I am proud. I'm proud we scrapped the two-child limit. I'm proud we're lifting over 500,000 children out of poverty. Proud we raised the national minimum wage again. That is what a Labour government is for, making life better for working families, unlocking their potential and giving our children a fair chance to get on. And that is the story of the budget. There were necessary choices. Of course there were. Fair choices, I would argue. Tax rises do make life harder for people. I understand that. It's obvious. And I'm not going to pretend that there aren't alternatives. Politics is always about making choices. We could have cut public services. We could have ignored child poverty. We could have rolled the dice with extra borrowing. But I firmly believe that those options have been tested to destruction. I mean, we all know the risks of reckless borrowing. That is the path that Liz Truss took. And you can see the cost in any bill, mortgage, car loan, anything affected by interest rates. But also, look at the OBR's analysis of productivity. And it's crystal clear to me that austerity scarred the long-term productive capability of this country. So why would we repeat it? That is what we inherited. Public finances and public services in total crisis. Growth weak for years. But if you'd said to me 17 months ago, on the first day of government, that by now we would have cut NHS waiting times, cut immigration, cut child poverty by a record amount, if you'd said to me that Britain would now be cutting borrowing faster than any other G7 country without cutting public investment, that our fiscal headroom is up significantly, economic growth is beating the forecasts, with wages up more since the election than in a decade of the previous government, if you'd said to me, because of all that, we can tackle the cost of living for working people, freezing rail fares, freezing prescription charges, freezing fuel duty, slashing childcare costs, driving down mortgages, taking £150 off your energy bills, £300 for poorer households, then I would say yes. That is a record to be proud of. And I am proud. I'm proud the public services. I am proud the public finances and our public services are moving in the right direction because we confronted reality. We took control of our future and Britain is now back on track. And look, I am also confident we have now walked through the narrowest part of the tunnel. Because while I know it's still hard for lots of people, while I know the cost of living crisis is not gone away, in the year ahead, you will see the benefits of our approach, not just in the national statistics, but in your communities. You will see a country building its future with new homes and infrastructure, 2,000 free breakfast clubs, hundreds of school-based nurseries opened by September. You'll see 3,000 neighbourhood police officers on your streets by March. A new era of security for 11 million renters starting in May. Hundreds of thousands of parents taking advantage of our free childcare expansion. Almost 120 community diagnostic centres open 7 days a week by April. You will see NHS waiting times coming down further. Wages still rising faster than prices. Immigration still falling. And bit by bit, you will see a country that no longer feels the burden of decline, or the sense that things can never get better. A Britain with its confidence and its future back. Now, take our energy policy. That's £150 off your energy bill. £300 if you're really struggling. Now, think about what that means to a family. Worried about whether to put the heating on a cold day, or worried that if they switch it on for too long, they might have to cancel a day out with their kids. It's not just money, it's security. It's having the freedom to make choices that help your family. Or think about our childcare investment. 30 hours free for every child between 9 months and 4 years old. A massive difference to the cost of living. Thousands of pounds back in the pockets of working parents. Real help getting parents and carers back to work, especially for women. And that is good for growth. But it's also good for our children's potential. Now, I visit primary schools all the time, and when I'm not getting told off for doing the 6-7, teachers repeatedly say to me, this is across the country, that some kids arrive at reception reading books, ready to learn, while others are still in nappies. I am sick of hearing those stories right across the country. Think about that. Inequality at aged just 4, baked in for life and likely to last a whole life. That's why everything we're doing for children is a game changer for our potential. We're giving every child the best start in life, every single child equal at the starting line of their education. And that's what a Labour government is for. And look, when it comes to economic growth and living standards, we're confident we can beat the forecasts. We've already beaten them this year. We are in control of our future. We've already struck trade deals that are attracting billions of pounds of investment. We're removing barriers to business right across the economy, in planning, industrial policy, pension reform, artificial intelligence, capital investment. And right at the heart of the budget, we have a package of measures that give the green light for the world's best entrepreneurs to start, scale and list their companies in Britain. But we have to be clear, at this stage of our plan, the most important things that we can do for growth, the most important things that we can do for business is first to drive inflation down so that interest rates come down further still and the cost of business investment comes down with it. And second, to retain market confidence that allows for real economic stability so that businesses can plan with certainty. That is what the country needs most right now. It is what the budget secured. And that's why our choices were fair, they were necessary, and they were fundamentally good for growth. But I will level with you. As the budget showed, the path to a Britain that is truly built for all requires many more decisions that are not cost-free and they're not easy. We can all see the challenge. Low productivity, the result of an economy scarred by austerity, by Brexit, and by consistently failing to unlock the nation's potential. So we need a productivity revolution. And as our plan runs to the end of Parliament, I want to set out some of the next steps in our economic renewal so that our progress can be fairly judged. First, regulation. Now, exactly a week ago, John Fingleton reported on our nuclear industry. He found that pointless gold plating, unnecessary red tape, well-intentioned but fundamentally misguided environmental regulations. And I quote, it's quite a stark quote, he said, "A mindset that favours process over outcome has all made Britain the most expensive place to build nuclear power." Now, I agree with him. In fact, I would go further, because the truth is we see that story repeated again and again right across our economy. For years, Britain did not have a proper industrial strategy. For years, it cut public investment. For years, it did not have a planning framework or frankly, a government that would quickly approve new railways, new tram lines, data centres, laboratories, power stations, wind farms, even whole towns. So, guided by a simple truth that rooting out excessive costs in every corner of our economy is an essential step to cutting the cost of living and creating more dynamic markets for business, we will also clear the path for British business. And therefore, in addition to accepting the Fingleton recommendations, I'm asking the Business Secretary to apply these lessons across the entire industrial strategy. Second, welfare. For too long, our welfare system has trapped people in poverty. And poverty is always a barrier to potential. That's why we scrapped the two-child limit. But we also have to confront the reality that our welfare state is trapping people not just in poverty, but out of work. Young people in particular. And that is a poverty of ambition. And so, while we will invest in apprenticeships and make sure young people without a job have a guaranteed offer of training or work, we must also reform the welfare state itself. That is what renewal demands. Now, this is not about propping up a broken status quo, nor is it because we want to look somehow politically tough. The Tories played that game, and the welfare bill went up by £88 billion. And they left children too poor to eat and wrote young people off as too ill to work. That was a total failure. So we've asked Alan Milburn to report on the whole issue of young people, inactivity and work, because we need to remove all the barriers which hold back the potential of our young people.
He was in government before.
Well, that's Keir Starmer there giving a speech in Labour HQ. He's just started to talk about
Did you think it was an oratorical
welfare.
triumph? Don't think you did.
I'm going to remain neutral on the delivery, but some of the content was interesting because, of course, everybody knows that the rising cost of welfare is really what is putting our economy on an unstable footing. It's due to rise by £80 billion in this Parliament alone. And we were hoping for some specific measures that the Prime Minister is going to take, how to reduce that welfare bill. But so far, all he said is that they're going to reform it. They're going to reform it. How, we don't know.
Yeah.
And that Alan Milburn will be looking at details.
He was in government 20 years ago under Blair. So we're going to go back to Starmer again. Just have to take a listen.
That does not position us as an open trading economy. So we must all now confront the reality that the Brexit deal we have significantly hurt our economy. And so, for economic renewal, we have to keep reducing frictions. We have to keep moving towards a closer relationship with the EU. And we have to be grown up about that, to accept that this will require trade-offs. That applies to our trading relations right across the world. And as you've seen already with this government, there are deals to be done if you're committed to building relationships. That's what we've done with the US, it's what we've done with India, and it's what we've done with the EU. And we will keep going. We will continue to reject drift, to confront reality, and take control of our future. That is what the budget achieved last week, and we will build on it. A long-term plan for the economic renewal of this country. A Britain that is free from decline, confident about its future, and with the potential of every single person unlocked. Truly built for all. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm now going to take a number of questions from the media. I've got a list here. It starts with Chris Mason, BBC. I see Chris here.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Chris Mason, BBC News. As a former lawyer, you'll be familiar with the concept of people offering the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Isn't the reality that in failing to be candid about the breadth of what she knew at her pre-budget news conference, the Chancellor misled us? And if I may, on reform of the welfare system, how fundamental is it to you that the benefits bill starts to fall? Thank you.
Well, look, on the build-up to the budget, let me just step through that in some detail, because there was no BR productivity review. The result of that was there was £16 billion less than we might otherwise have had. That's a difficult starting point for any budget. We had already made commitments, which I think I've expressed to you and many others many times over, that we were going to protect our public services, particularly NHS, to cut borrowing costs and to bear down on the cost of living. So we had, on the one hand, £16 billion less than we might otherwise have had. We had clear commitments that we'd made throughout the process as to what it was we were going to achieve. Therefore, against that backdrop, it was inevitable that we would always have to raise revenue. So there's no misleading there. During the overall process, the numbers improved. And there was a point at which we thought, myself included, that we might have to reach for a manifesto breach of some significance. I didn't want to get to that place, but I recognise we might have to. As the process then continued, it became clear to me and others that we might be able to do what we needed to do with our priorities without that manifesto breach. And that's what we did with the fair and necessary decisions that we took, which did, to root back to where I started, make good on the principles, which was protecting public services and the NHS in particular, where record amounts have gone in, and hence the waiting times coming down, which did help with borrowing costs, because I was determined that we needed to have bigger headroom than we had last time, and we more than doubled it, which has been a very significant part of the budget, not easy to do for obvious reasons. And we were able to, and are able to, bear down on the cost of living, hence the £150 off people's energy bills, and the measures we're able to take in relation to the two-child benefit. So the review put us in a bad place to start with. We worked through our principles. There was a point at which I thought we might have to breach the manifesto. I was always wanting to know if there are alternatives to that, and the point came when there was an alternative to that, and that's the route that we took. Thank you very much on that issue. On welfare, look, there are a number of aspects to this. The welfare bill has gone up extraordinarily under the last government, but there is also what I would call a moral mission. I've been particularly concerned about young people, best part of 1 million young people, who are not in work and not learning. And over and above any other issue, I think it's a moral issue, because I know all the evidence points to this, that if you're not earning or learning at that age, the likelihood is it's going to be that much more difficult to get into earning and learning later in your life, and therefore there's a real moral element to this as well. Thank you very much, Chris. Can I go to Sky? Beth, please.
Thank you very much. Beth Rigby, Sky News. Prime Minister, we found out from the Office of Budget Responsibility that the Chancellor, with your backing, misled the public on November the 4th when she warned about a black hole in the public finances without telling us the second bit, that higher than expected tax receipts meant the economy was in a much healthier position than the Chancellor publicly suggested to all of us and to the country. A Cabinet Minister has told me this morning they do feel misled. How do you respond to that as Prime Minister? And can you really commit to driving through welfare cuts, given that some at your top table don't have confidence in you? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Beth. Look, there was no misleading. And I simply don't accept, and I was receiving the numbers, that being told that the OBR productivity review means you've got £16 billion less than you would otherwise have had, shows that you've got an easy starting point. Yes, of course, all the other figures have to be taken into account, but we started the process with significantly less than we would otherwise have had. That productivity review, or review like that, hasn't been done, I think, for 15 years. This is not an annual exercise. It's an exercise that was done this year. I'm not sure why it wasn't done at the end of the last government, if I'm honest about it, because that would have seemed to me a sensible time to have done it. But it was done. The net result was £16 billion less than you would otherwise have got. That meant, if we measured against our objectives, which is protecting public services, doing what we could on the headroom, which I really wanted to do this time for reasons that are well understood in terms of the stability that it gives. I wanted to more than double the headroom and to bear down on the cost of living, because I know that for families and communities across the country, that is the single most important issue. Wanted to achieve all those things, starting that exercise with £16 billion less than we might otherwise have had. Of course, there are other figures in this, but there's no pretending that that's a good starting point for a government. It isn't. And there's no to suggest that a government that is saying that's not a good starting point is misleading. It is wrong, in my view. As I say, there was a point at which we did think we would have to breach the manifesto in order to achieve what we wanted to achieve. Later on, it became possible to do it without the manifesto breach. Given the choice between the two, I didn't want to breach the manifesto, and that's why we came to the decisions that we did. On the question about welfare, look, I do think that this is a moral mission. I don't think we can simply leave the best part of 1 million young people not earning or learning and walk past it. I mean, just as I fundamentally believe we've got to lift children out of poverty, that is a moral and personal mission for me, always has been. So too, I feel very strongly about the 1 million young people who we've got a cohort going through who, unless we intervene and do something, could well spend the rest of their lives in that kind of dependency. And I think that's wrong in principle, and that's why I want to deal with it. Thank you, Beth. ITV, Robert Peston.
Hello, Prime Minister. For my sins, I've reported on budgets for 35 years.
That's a good record.
And truthfully, I have never seen preparations for a budget as shambolic as these, except for Liz Truss's mini-budget, and we all know how that ended. Is this the Chancellor's fault, or is it your fault? And just briefly on, you mentioned you want to drive faster on trade. Your current proposals for the EU are not economically significant. Are you going to drive harder and faster in getting a better trade deal with the EU?
Robert, let me just deal with the substance of the budget, because it's really important that we focus on that, in my view. We have protected our public services and our NHS. That is hugely important. Our NHS was on its knees after 14 years of the last government. Now we're bringing waiting times down. That is not easy. It requires record investment. It requires decisions to be made, fair and necessary decisions of this government. And I'm proud of that. I'm proud of that. That is an outcome of the budget. We have over doubled the headroom than the headroom we had before. And every business knows that that helps with stability and certainty, which is what they're looking for above all else. And they know that that has an impact on inflation, which impacts them. So I'm proud that we've done that under the budget. And we've borne down on the cost of living. I'm proud that we've lifted 500,000 children out of poverty. I think is abhorrent. I think the idea we've had for the best part of 10 years, that if you have this cap in place, it would have any effect other than dragging hundreds of thousands of children into poverty, has been tried and tested to destruction. The only effect of it was to drag hundreds of thousands of children into poverty. And we're ending that under this budget, and I'm proud of that. I'm also proud of the fact that we took the decision not just to freeze rail fares, freeze prescriptions, but to take down energy bills by £150. Now, again, in the hospital that we went to on the afternoon of the budget, when we told them that, they broke out in a clap, because they knew what it would mean to them. They knew what it would mean to them. Whatever happens in the Commons and the toing and froing in the Coppen, go and talk to staff in the NHS, and they clap when you tell them you'll bring down their energy bill. So I'm glad we're now on the substance of the budget, and on the substance of the budget, I'd defend it any day of the week. They're the right steps for our country, and I'm proud that we've taken them. On trade, Robert, look, we do need to get closer to the EU. It is clear from all of the analysis that the deal that we've got has hurt our economy. That's why we've rebuilt relations and reset relations with the EU, and I'm proud that we've done that. That is why we're moving forward. We had the mandates agreed for the SPS agreement, and that will drive down costs in supermarkets significantly, particularly food costs, and the emission trading scheme just in the last week or two. So we're making progress on that front. And that goes in addition to the other trade deals that we've done with countries of the US, that we did, and I remember the days when people were saying to me, you can't have a deal with the US and a deal with the EU, and we've got both. And the deal that we did with India, which it had been in the making, I think, for 8 years until we came along and actually did the deal. So I'm proud that we're making that progress. Thank you very much. I'll go to Chris Hope from GBNews. Chris.
Chris Hope, GBNews. Prime Minister, you wanted to tread lightly on our lives before you were elected. You were different from the Tory party, but aren't you exactly the same? From David Lammy repeatedly not being clear about an escaped migrant in the House of Commons, to Rachel Reeves talking about a black hole that wasn't actually there. Now you want to cut benefits, but trust matters. How can our viewers trust anything you say?
Well, Chris, I simply don't accept the starting proposition. I'm really sorry. When I was told that we started the budget process minus £16 billion, I didn't cheer. I didn't think it was good. I thought it was a very bad starting position. I was curious as to why the productivity review had been done this year and not previously, but there we are. That's the nature of the beast. It's done, and the price is calculated, and I'm handed the tab. Minus £16 billion. Not suggesting the other figures aren't there, but it is not. I won't accept the proposition that somehow this was a good starting point. I'm £16 billion down on what I thought I'd have. And I know the impact that's going to have on your viewers, because I know for them that the cost of living is the single most important issue. I know for them they are going to be worried at the beginning of the month in January, is their season ticket going up? Because they normally get whacked with that pretty early in January. Prescription charges matter to them, and their energy bills matter to them. And there are choices, therefore, that can or can't be done if you start with minus £16 billion. So I simply, I know it'll be put to me many, many times, I simply don't accept the proposition that somehow starting your budget process minus £16 billion is a particularly good starting point. If that hadn't have happened, I'd have had £16 billion more to weigh in the options and the choices that we made. 2/3 of the headroom is £16 billion. So you can see the significance of that amount of money. I think all I can do is explain the impact that these decisions have on your viewers, and to assure them that I am well aware that the number one issue for them is the cost of living, and that's why in the budget and all the other decisions, I mean, last week we were doing free school meals, free breakfast clubs, free childcare. All of these are good for children in their own right, but they're also really important cost of living measures as well. And I think for many of your viewers, they will, I hope, be pleased to see things like those measures going in. The childcare is a real game changer for so many parents and carers across the whole country. Thank you very much, Chris. Aubrey from The Times.
Good morning, Prime Minister. Aubrey Allegressi from The Times.
Given we now know that actually you had a budget surplus of at least £4 billion before Rachel Reeves gave her press conference, which set hairs running and fuelled all this speculation, isn't it misleading of her to have still then not ruled out an income tax rise and only given us one side of the story after she'd been made aware that things were better than anticipated? And do you think that the OBR has overstepped its remit by publishing what forecasts it gave to the Treasury and when, or actually do you think that having more transparency like that is a good thing? Thank you.
Well, Aubrey, I've been through this a number of times, but obviously at the early stage, it's very important not to rule out steps that it's a process that goes on, as you know, for some weeks until the final decisions are made. But to be told at the beginning of the process, you're £16 billion worse off than you might otherwise have been is a significantly difficult starting point. Look, we could have made other choices. I could have said, I know we said we would protect the NHS, but I've decided now not to. We're going to cut the funding to the NHS and let it go back to where it was under the last government. I wasn't going to do that. We could have said, well, I wanted to more than double the headroom, but we're not going to do that anymore. I was concerned about that and wanted to make sure that we had a significant headroom for reasons that are obvious to the markets and to business. And we could have said we're not going to bother about any of the cost of living measures. We know it's the number one concern to voters, but we're just not going to do it. I fundamentally disagree with that. And therefore, of course, it was right that we flagged that we started in this position. And my strong view is it would have been wrong to rule out other measures that would have to be taken as a result, and in fact were taken, because there were tax rises in the budget, as you and others have pointed out to me a number of times. In relation to publishing the figures, look, that's a matter for Richard Hughes, I think, to explain rather than me. Good. I've got Guardian, Jess.
Hi there, Prime Minister. Jess Elgott from The Guardian. You've said a few times in this speech that you don't believe or will beat the OBR's gloomy forecasts on growth or living standards. You're clearly very angry at the timing of the productivity downgrade. And you've given them figures that you know you'll probably never have to do on spending cuts before the next election. What is the point of the OBR if it clearly doesn't command your confidence?
I'm not angry at the productivity review. It's a good thing that reviews like that are done from time to time. I'm bemused. Myself, I feel that doing it at the end of the last government and before we started might have been a good point to do a productivity review so we could know exactly what we were confronted with. Doing it 15, 16 months into a government, it had to be done sometime, but picking up the tab for the last government's failure and it's been the nature of the beast, frankly, for the last 16 months, but it was given a special emphasis in that exercise. I'm not angry. I'm just bemused as to why it wasn't done at the end of the government rather than done now. But but I'm not saying that these reviews aren't important, etc. On beating the forecast, look, I am confident, and I'm confident because the forecast that was given to us for 2025 for economic growth was 1%, and it came in last week at 1.5%. That's a 50% overreach on the forecast. So I know these targets can be beaten, and we are absolutely out to defy the forecasts and beat them, just as we've already done this year. On the OBR, I'm very supportive of the OBR. I'm very supportive of the OBR. It is, in my view, vital for stability and inbuilt in our fiscal rules, which I've said a number of times are ironclad. So, look, I'm not going to suggest that what happened last week, which was the entire budget being published before the Chancellor got to her feet, was not anything other than a serious error. This was market-sensitive information. It was a massive discourtesy to Parliament. It's a serious error, and there's an investigation that's going on. But as for the OBR itself, I'm very supportive of the OBR for the reasons I've set out. Vital for stability, vital and integral to our fiscal rules, which I've said a number of times are ironclad. Thank you very much, Jess. I've got Lizzie from The Mirror.
Prime Minister, Lizzie Buckham from the Daily Mirror. You talked about looking again at welfare reform, but you failed to pass your measures the last time you tried. Can you take your MPs with you this time, and would you take the whip off people if they oppose cuts to welfare?
Well, look, on this issue in welfare, I'm focusing particularly on young people. I do think there's a general consensus that it is a moral mission. I mean, there aren't many people who are comfortable with, nor should they be, the fact that there's nearly 1 million young people who are, very stuck with not earning and not learning. And my worry, as I say, is that is something that isn't a short-term thing that happens just for a number of years and then it's sort of back into work, back into learning and everything's fine. My big worry is that all of the evidence I've seen shows that if at that age that's the situation, the likelihood is it's going to go on for decades and that's going to impact that cohort. I think it's generally, there's a strong consensus that we must do something about that and we will do something about it. I've got Jack from The Sun, Jack Elson.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Just to pick up on a point which Chris made at the beginning, is it your goal that welfare spending by the next election will be coming down and not up? And then just secondly, your Chancellor in the budget and over the weekend says that she was asking ordinary workers to contribute a little bit more. But what is your message to people who aren't contributing at all? Thank you.
Certainly, in terms of the welfare bill, we've got two reviews going on, as you know. The Sims review and the Milburn review. We need to let them complete their course. It is a moral mission, but I've been outspoken a number of times on the fact that the last government lost control of the welfare spending, and like all things, it falls to us to pick up the mess that they have made. In relation to, look, we are asking everybody to contribute a little bit more. I do think it's really important to appreciate with the two-child limit that 3/4 of children in poverty are in working families. It's the working poor we're dealing with here. That is families who are working but can't make enough money from their wages in order to pay their bills and keep their children out of poverty. I think we should do something about that. I think it's the right thing to do for children. I think it's the right thing to do for the NHS. I was really struck spontaneously last week by the strength of feeling in the hospital that if we were able to deal with child poverty, it would bring the number of children going into hospital down and have a real impact on the NHS budget. And that's not me saying it to you. This is what the first reaction of the staff in hospital was to that effect. And I genuinely think it's really important for the economy. If we want our economy to grow, and we do, we have to ensure that every single person can contribute to that. It is really hard if you're growing up in poverty to play your full part economically towards the growth that we need in this country. So for all those reasons, I think it's the right thing to do. I've now got news with Chris. Chris.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Good morning, Prime Minister. Chris Chandler, News with Chris. The government is lifting the two-child benefit cap from next April. But with working families being told they need to contribute more and the two-child benefit cap not being lifted from next April, what reassurance can you give families right now that are struggling this winter as it approaches?
Yeah, well, for families struggling this winter, I want to give the reassurance that we're taking a number of measures on the cost of living, because I think for them, that's probably the thing uppermost in their mind. Can I make ends meet? Can I pay the bills? As I said in my speech, that happened to me when I was growing up. We didn't have enough money to pay all of our bills. We had to do what families are doing now, which is to sit around the kitchen table and make the difficult choices to which bills we wouldn't pay because we couldn't afford to do so. There was the old days of landlines, but that's why we had to have the phone cut off, because we couldn't pay the bill. In those days, that meant the end of your phone. But those are the decisions that families are going through this winter, and that's why what I'd say through you to them is we are taking measures in relation to rail fares, to prescriptions, energy bills down by £150. For those that are struggling most, that's on top of the 150 that we're already taking off for. So last winter, 3 million families that needed it most had their energy bills reduced by £150. We've extended that to 6 million of the poorest families, those struggling most this winter. So for them, there's that additional benefit as well. And for any of those through you who've got children who can benefit from free breakfast clubs, from free school meals, The free childcare, which downstairs there's a nursery where you see firsthand the evidence of this, from 9 months to 4 years, does save a significant amount of money, does mean that parents and carers can get back into work if that's what they want to do and earn a little bit more. And it's hugely important for children, because I fundamentally believe that children aged 4 ought to be at the same point on the starting line. And as I said in my speech, I'm sick of hearing that children aged 4, some of them ready to learn, some of them in nappies. It's not a slogan in a speech. It's really something we should all be concerned about. We're beginning to end that. So thank you very much, Chris. And I've got News ASB Andrew. Andrew.
Good morning, Prime Minister. What guarantees can you give that your government will be transparent about fiscal realities, even if the news is politically inconvenient?
Well, I think, firstly, Andrew, thank you very much. I think by standing up here and walking through the decisions that we've made, hopefully that helps explain the process and very much setting out the result of that, the substance, the content of the budget, and being clear, I think, as to what the driving principles were behind it, that we wanted to protect our public services, our NHS in particular, and most people would say that's a good thing, because they need to know the NHS is there for them and their families when they need it. And one of the saddest things under the last government is when Labour left power, we had the lowest waiting lists and the highest confidence in the NHS. And that was really appreciated in the NHS and by the staff. At the last election, we had the highest waiting lists and the lowest confidence. And you can imagine the impact that had on the staff of the NHS who are trying to do their level best, and yet the public confidence is at its lowest because of the position they've been left in. So we were determined to turn that around. We're determined to bring down the cost of borrowing, because that then impacts on interest rates, which then for anybody with a mortgage or a bill or anything where interest rates make a difference is hugely important. And I wanted transparently to be clear that the cost of living is the single most important thing for most families and communities across the country. And they will want to know, and through me and you questioning me, can know that we've taken a number of measures on the cost of living, which will help. It doesn't eradicate the problem, but helps, but also gives the sense that we're a government that does actually understand what a cost of living crisis feels like, and that's determined to make the fair and necessary decisions to deal with it. Thank you all very much indeed. Thank you.
Speaking to an audience in central London, clearly a partisan audience, because there was quite a lot of clapping. Claire Muldoon, what did you make of that?
I thought he stood there and was more or less saying that he's not a leader because he's not got control of anything. He has got complete trust in the OBR. Really? The manufactured budget that was let out before Rachel Reeves stood up on the dispatch box and delivered it.
Never happened before that. It's never happened.
It's not, and it's possibly criminal, notwithstanding all the things that she said in the budget. But back to Keir Starmer, he alienated 52% of the population that voted for Brexit. He said, you know, we need closer ties with Europe, so he's not listening to the electorate either. And one bit of advice, Keir, don't bother having a manifesto, because anything that's in it, you either pivot on it or make up something new.
Hard to disagree with a lot of that, Matthew.
If I was to take the positives, I welcome the Prime Minister talking about welfare and welfare reform. I think we're due to hit 131 billion on long-term sickness and disability by 2030 on our welfare budget.
Didn't say how he's going to do it, though, did he?
No, he could do worse than looking at the Centre for Social Justice study, which says you can save 7.6 billion by taking away PIP from those with mild mental health issues. You'll get 69% of people off the universal credit health aspect as well as PIP. And I think even if 10% of those go into work, because I think the idea is you put £1 billion of those savings into talking therapy, you could get 1.5 million therapy sessions, essentially. 10% of those people going to work, you're making money back through tax and
Well, they could actually go one step further. It's the ability for people to get welfare is incredibly difficult, actually. It's so objective. The questions in the forms, the questions online, people must be trained on how to do it to get through the mire of it all. And then even if you're dealing with HMRC, you phone up, you try and use a phone line, you can't get through. You really can't get through to talk to someone.
But Matthew, you've just given some excellent examples of how the government could reduce welfare. Keir Starmer's been talking about not trapping people in out-of-work benefits, but they're doing the exact opposite. There's a story in the Telegraph today that's showing that in the budget, in the small print, it's been revealed that children now with ADHD claims will no longer be required to be in education for their parents to claim benefits.
It's concerning, and I think there's obviously a COVID aspect to this. The budget, the welfare budget, surged by 20 billion for long-term disability and sick since COVID. And there's obviously a lockdown aspect of this that I think we forget about sometimes.
Is it a COVID excuse?
I don't know about that. I think it's easier to do. I was on Universal Credit briefly during COVID, and my understanding is they've not brought a lot of the face-to-face appointments back. Now, without that, it's very easy to sign people off. We read in the Sunday Times over the weekend that doctors are feeling like they have to give fit notes because there's a pressure to do so. There's an expectancy of someone taking away something and you're not doing your duty if you do that. I think the problem is, as someone that, don't get me wrong, as a teenager hated going into work, it was a nightmare trying to get me out of bed. You get the social health and the mental health aspects of going into work, earning a crust, feeling like you've got a role in life in many ways, rather than, as I was back in the day, shuttered behind a tower block where you wouldn't speak to a single people for days on end because you were all in a similar position. Shuttered away from the world, essentially. You're not very happy. It's to guarantee you that.
What else did you take from the speech?
The welfare of the children, of the child, giving parents more hours, more. I mean, that in itself is foolhardy because nurseries cannot take the bulge in numbers that the parents are using for the free childcare. And let's not beat about the bush here, it's not free. And why aren't they giving mothers or fathers incentives to stay at home? Raise your child with virtue. Be there for your child. And he was whittering on about the child turning up to school with a used uniform. There's more to that child.
With the world's
gaze upon the child. I mean, he is like a robot. He delivers like a robot. But this language, this rhetoric that he keeps using, it's really making me more cross than normal.
Well, Matthew, Claire, thank you so much.
Let's just say before they go, how many times did he mention the word Chancellor of the Exchequer, who was embroiled in this amazing, extraordinary row about misleading Parliament, misleading the Cabinet. Beth Rigby, one of the journalists, said she spoke to a Cabinet minister this morning saying he or she had been misled.
Yeah.
The Times are reporting 2 Cabinet ministers say they were misled. He didn't talk about it at all.
Of course he didn't. Of course he didn't.
Well, a bit similar to last week, a very famous broadcaster of household notoriety told me last week that the Cabinet are not speaking to Keir Starmer and the Cabinet are not speaking to one another. So if you want dysfunctionality and bunker mentalities, he's not someone that would make this sort of stuff up. Very, very esteemed individual.
And it was probably an esteemed individual who was given duff information by the Treasury about the size of the so-called black hole in our finances.
Listen, we teach our kids to take responsibility and apologise and do the right thing, and yet we have politicians, I'm fed up of all sides, of not taking responsibility. If your idea is, the budget equivalent of only having 20 quid spare each week in the 4 billion, that's fine. Tell us that you're doing this to have headroom. You've got to be prepared in case the car breaks down, the dog gets sick or whatever else. Explain that. But we have this weird thing in the Labour Party where we explain it in such wooden, bloviated terms, and nobody quite gets it at home. There's got to be a clearer excuse for it than they're giving.
Because on the one hand, Keir Starmer's saying that we are in control of our future, we're in control, but at the same time blaming everything bad that happens on external events.
Yeah, I mean, you've mentioned Wooden, mentioned Cabinet. Go to IKEA. I'm sure they've got better cabinets there than anyone else could ever hope for.
Screws loose at IKEA, then.
That's very good, very good.
Well, thank you to our panel. It's time now for a brand new Great British giveaway and your chance to win our biggest cash prize to date. That's an incredible £85,000 in tax-free cash. Could be yours in the new year. How amazing would that be? It'd be like having more than £7,000 extra in your bank account each month for the whole of 2026. That would be our biggest cash winner of all time. And here's all the details you need.
It's the greatest cash prize of a Great British giveaway so far. A simply stunning £85,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like, making 2026 your greatest year to date. That could get you that brand new car, extend and improve your home, take you away on that bucket list holiday, or just give you some peace of mind over the coming months. For a chance to win £85,000 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB18 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 30th of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
This Christmas, we are putting on a really exciting event and we want lots of you there too.
Yes, on Saturday the 13th of December, you're invited to join the GB News family for our Carols by Candlelight concert. For your chance to be with us, you can apply for tickets by scanning the QR code, which is on the screen right now, or by going to gbnews.com/carols. So the concert is going to be recorded on the 13th, but broadcast on Christmas Eve.
We're going to be there, aren't we?
Absolutely.
Miriam?
I think we're going to have starring roles, aren't we, Andrew?
I'm doing a reading and we're trying to persuade Ms. Cates to play the Joanna. Because she plays it very well.
I can't play an organ now. I think there's going to be an organ now.
Oh, well, I think we should get you a grand piano.
Oh, yeah.
Be nice. Now, up next, Justice Secretary David Lammy has had a stern warning about his plans to axe jury trials. We'll be going through that and more with our panel, Claire Muldoon and Matthew Talbot. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact is Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. 25 minutes past 11. You're watching and listening to Britain's Newsroom. We're live across the United Kingdom with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
We've still got our panel with us, Matthew Talbot and Claire Muldoon. What else are you going to talk about?
What do you want to talk about? We've got Peppa Pig, role models, fathers.
Peppa Pig.
So is that what we'll do?
Yes.
Matthew, you started it, didn't you?
Yeah, you carry on.
You
No
started
problem,
it.
no problem.
Matthew's had his say. Why do you think that this is an
Because Peppa Pig, he's a loyal father, he's a loyal husband. There's lots of good, positive things about Peppa Pig, father. And why do we always maintain that fathers have got, you know, they're almost emasculated at times? That's not true. Why does everybody need to have a role model? Why can't they just, you know, learn through life, learn through kindness, learn through virtues? Why is David Gandy, who is better known for exposing himself in a pair of M&S briefs, really, why are we sitting listening to him saying, you know, I'm a great father now, father, the roles of fathers have changed, I do the cooking, I do the cleaning, I do the school. But you should be doing that anyway. You're part of a partnership.
Yeah.
It's not news.
Well, I agree with you know, large part of that, in a sense of that, you know, I think Andy's right in the fact that roles have changed and we should be doing that, and men probably should have always have been doing that. I certainly try and do my bit. I think with regards to role models, whether you have them or not, the problem is kids will look for things, unfortunately. And I think the problem is with...
Well, they don't look to Peppa Pig. I mean, that's
maybe not. Maybe not. And this is why I think
here.
if you look at the more older films and you know, you take Superbad, The In-Betweeners, these sort of, you know, bizarre people that might be seen as cool, others not, but the ones that are clever don't quite get the credit that they should do. And I think I'd rather my kids listen to David Gandy or Gareth Southgate. I think is a perfect example of a good, upstanding human being with compassion and the right morals and whatever, than seep into this manosphere aspect that many teenagers
That's because of Andrew Tate and the internet. That's because of bad managing screen time.
Claire, I think obviously Daddy Pig is what's hit the news. Yeah. But what the report is about, Men in Culture by the Centre for Social Justice, is looking at the way that our whole culture, not just kids' cartoons, portray men. And I think, you know, if culture has such an important aspect in how men, boys, see what it means to become a man. It's not just about your own father. OK, then. And when culture portrays men as a bit pathetic, that's not a helpful thing for small boys.
Only Fools and Horses and Fawlty Towers. What do we take about that? And the Monty Python films.
Yeah, they were hopeless, but I didn't think you aspired to be like them.
Exactly, so you know not to aspire to be certain things, and likewise you should know what to aspire to.
I think society and culture has changed since then, in the sense of, I think during the 90s when I was born, it became cool to be bad. It wasn't as much of a thing, I don't think, 60s, 70s, 80s. It became cool to be bad. I saw a lot of it with wrestling culture, the WWF as it was then. Hulk Hogan went from being the all-great American, the good guy that had taken him on, to Hollywood Hogan dressing in black and, you know, being awful to women and whatever else. And there was a whole culture that got swept up in that. And I worry that there's an overhang of people raising their kids like that.
I'm just going to jump in, I'm afraid, because we're going to quickly go over to our political editor, Christopher Hope, who was there at the speech with Sir Keir Starmer. Chris, you got a question in there. What did you think of the Prime Minister's answer to your challenge?
The challenge was about trust, frankly, Miriam. How can our viewers trust you again, given the way this government appears to be behaving in many ways like the last one, if I can say that to you? I mean, with David Lammy and the issue of the migrants, asked 5 times in PMQs about this migrant who escaped or released from prison wrongly, to Rachel Reeves talking about a black hole that wasn't there. Now, we had quite a firm defence of that from the Prime Minister. He talked about necessary choices made last week. We could have cut public services, he said, but he couldn't do that as a Labour government. Why repeat austerity, he said. Instead, he unveiled a new welfare review by Alan Milburn, the former Labour Health Secretary in Tony Blair's government. And also he talked about, he was challenged by one reporter, will the welfare bill come down or go up before the next election? He wouldn't say it would come down. He simply said it's a moral mission to reform it, but wouldn't say that huge number will come down. That opens up, again, another way to attack this government by the Tories, of course, but the Tories did oversee a big increase in the welfare bill, but their attack on this idea of benefits budget, benefit street budget, however you call it, from Kevin Badenoch last week, they will see that and work on that one, I think, because why can't this government say they'll bring down benefits? But overall, we had defence there from the Prime Minister. He said he had a £16 billion shortfall in the figures, if you include this idea of a £20 billion requirement for some headroom for some rainy day funds. So he feels that was well defended. But I think the issue of trust isn't yet answered. And of course, that's what I try to push the PM on.
I may have missed it, but he hardly mentioned the Chancellor at all.
He barely mentioned her. She's in Wales, talking to reporters and politicians over in Wales. He wasn't asked, I don't think he was asked, Andrew, do you have confidence in the Chancellor? We'll be pushing that hard at the only lobby meeting later on today. Yeah. But yeah, he said, he was trying to say, I saw the same figures that the Chancellor saw when I backed her, without saying explicitly that. But I'm sure that is the case, always has been the case. I think their fortunes are wedded together. They're knotted together at this time.
And also, there's been a development with one of his closest political friends in the Commons, Chris. That is Tulip Siddiq, who's got the neighbouring constituency to him. What's happened with her?
Well, she's been found guilty in absentia in Bangladesh for those corruption charges. Of course, she contests them, says they were trumped up politically. We don't know yet what it means for her as an MP, whether she can carry on being an MP despite the fact that she has got this been found guilty in Bangladesh. There's more charges to come, but she says they're trumped up by her enemies, and so she's disregarding them. But how that affects her being an MP here, I'm not entirely sure at this present time.
Now, fascinating. Now, Chris, one of the topics that wasn't mentioned today, well, apart from by you, was the Prime Minister's own future. Last week, there were many rumours about backbenchers threatening to overthrow him, perhaps after Christmas, perhaps after May. Do you think the budget and his explanation of it is making his future more or less secure as leader of the Labour Party?
I think, Miriam, it's made him more secure. I think amongst his base, his MPs and the activists will think he's done things here which are Labour things. Of course, he lifted the two-child benefit cap, lifted the national living wage, tried to give 150 quid to everyone next April to help with energy bills. But what this budget hasn't done yet is come into contact with the electorate, and that happens next May. And that's why trust matters so much. I think if May does go as badly as the polls suggest, he'll be in real trouble, as will Rachel Reeves. Of course, you need 81 Labour MPs to unite to try and overthrow the Prime Minister. But when I think MPs see the reaction which could happen next May in those local elections in England in thousands of seats, and also the elections in Wales and Scotland, if it's as bad as it seems, that's where I think is the time of maximum jeopardy for the Prime Minister. But as things stand, he will see Christmas in Downing Street this year.
All right, Chris, thanks for that. That's Chris Hope, our political editor in Westminster. Well, we're going to go to get our latest updates with 60 Second News Update with Sam Francis.
Very good morning to you. Well, as we were just hearing, Sir Keir Starmer is pushing ahead with a major new drive on welfare reform, even as Rachel Reeves faces claims she misled voters over the state of the public's finances. Earlier, he defended the Chancellor, though, and denied that Labour misled the public.
I simply don't accept the starting proposition. I'm really sorry. When I was told that we started the budget process minus £16 billion, I didn't cheer. I didn't think it was good.
Well, explosive evidence at the Afghanistan inquiry. A senior special forces officer says the UK's unit used kill counts and trigger time to judge themselves. It's alleged that detainees were executed and toddlers shot in their beds. Birmingham's bin dispute is escalating as agency workers hired to cover striking crews have now joined the picket lines themselves. Unite's national officer Onek Assab says the number of agency workers joining the strike action is growing daily.
For a group of workers brought in to try and break the strike, to vote yes for strike action themselves and then come out and stand shoulder to shoulder with those that originally came out and struck is completely unprecedented.
Labour MP Tulip Siddiq has been sentenced in her absence to 2 years in prison in Bangladesh. It's over corruption allegations she rejects. Senior UK lawyers have condemned the case as politically driven. She's expected to continue serving as an MP. And the Oxford word of the year is rage bait. The phrase describes online posts designed to make you angry and drive engagement. Those are the headlines. I'll be back with a full roundup at midday.
Take the GB News family with you on any device. As long as you have an internet connection, tune into GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond.
Welcome back. Well, coming up at noon, we have Good Afternoon Britain with Tom and Olivia. They're joining us in the studio now. What's coming up on the show?
Well,
We discussed this on Friday, and the story has only grown since then. Precisely, what did the Chancellor know and when? Would be the question that we would normally be asking, except now that the OBR took the extraordinary decision to publish a timeline of what the Chancellor knew and when, we knew precisely that she knew that the tax receipts were higher than everyone else thought, that these tax rises were not necessary to maintain a
And she specifically said, didn't she, that the tax receipts were down? She specifically said that in
the budget scene, she said productivity estimates are down. This will be a fall in tax receipts, but she knew that they were up.
And she knew even then that they were up.
Which is why a lot of people are getting in on the action today. Letters have gone in to parliamentary authorities. One from the Conservatives, Alec Burghardt, one from the Reform Party. We'll be speaking to, of course, everyone across the spectrum. Richard Tice is coming on the programme just after 1 o'clock.
Very good. Well, it's an interesting... What do you hear? How much trouble is she in?
I think because the hard and fast element of that speech was the press conference outside of Parliament. It's quite hard to bring a misleading Parliament case about something that wasn't said actually in Parliament. It's more misleading the country.
Yeah, well, which is pretty serious.
But not a crime, apparently.
No, not a crime.
Well, we've got all that coming up and more at midday. But up next on Britain's Newsroom, the Labour MP Tulip Siddiq has been sentenced to 2 years in prison in Bangladesh over corruption allegations. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Hello, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. It's a very wet start to December for many of us, and we have an amber weather warning in place across parts of South Wales, where we're expecting some flooding from the heavy rain caused by an area of low pressure. It's actually quite a long way away, but these weather fronts are draped across England and Wales in particular. Notice the isobars pretty close together as well, generating quite a strong wind. But it's really the rain that's the greatest cause for concern. We have warnings in place across much of western England, south Scotland also. It's across Wales, as I say, we've got that amber warning in place across the south. That rain really building up, and of course it's been a pretty wet November, so that's likely to exacerbate the issues. Quite mild out there, but obviously it doesn't feel all that mild with the heavy and persistent rain. Now we'll see some rain at times in southern and western parts of Scotland, but actually parts of the far north of Scotland generally staying dry and fine into the evening. A few showers coming into the western arts, but the rain could be quite heavy across the southwest of Scotland. Pretty soggy day over much of northern England and Wales in particular, so that amber warning across the south. Southwest England also seeing some fairly heavy bursts of rain, especially through this evening. Could be quite a line of intense rain that works from west to east. As it clears away, things will turn a little bit drier as we go through the night, but there'll still be some showers coming into western Scotland, northwest England, and as that rain band's cleared from eastern parts of England, we'll see some decent clear spells developing here. That will allow temperatures to drop down into single figures, but most of us will be above freezing, certainly to start Tuesday, about 5 or 6 in most towns and cities. Should start with some sunshine on Tuesday over the Midlands and eastern England, and for many here it'll be a decent day, but elsewhere expect showers, not the persistent rain that we've got today, but heavy showers over south and west Wales, southwest England. They'll move inland as we go through the day, maybe even could hear a rumble of thunder. Not as windy as today, but still quite breezy along the south coast and a little bit chillier.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
It's 20 to 12 and you're watching and listening to Britain's Newsroom on GB News with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
Well, the Labour MP Tulip Siddiq, she's a North London MP, in fact she's my constituency MP, has been sentenced to 2 years in jail for corruption in Bangladesh. The court case was, she was tried in absentia.
Well, the former minister was accused of obtaining plots of land from her aunt, who is the country's former prime minister, in Dhaka's diplomatic zone, although through abuse of power and influence.
And, of course, her mother is on the run. She's, we think, in India. Well, we're going to talk now to foreign correspondent of the Daily Telegraph, Saman Lateeb. Saman, good morning.
Good morning.
So Tulip Siddiq says this is a political hit job on her because she's a great supporter of her aunt, who was the Prime Minister of Bangladesh. Has she got a point?
Look, this case is part of the series of corruption cases against Sheikh Hasina. During her 15-year, what people in Bangladesh, we have seen last as well, like people say that the draconian rule. There has been widespread human rights violations and large, widespread corruption in Bangladesh. So there was a growing resentment against the Sheikh Hasina for many years. And given that she had tightly controlled the state institutions and the businesses were usually they would go to the loyalists of her Awami League. So and she used to get a good support from her family. All her family members were actually getting these plots, the business and all that. Now, when Tulip Siddiq says that is a political conspiracy against her, but the court today said they have the verdict is based on the evidence, the call records and WhatsApp messages they have reviewed, in which Tulip Siddiq has spoken with the communications officer of the Sheikh Hasina, her aunt and the former Prime Minister of Bangladesh, wherein she has insisted that these 3 plots, which are in the diplomatic zone of Purvachal, they should be allotted to Tulip Siddiq's mother and her 2 siblings. So as of now, both the prosecution as well as the court, they claim they have a strong evidence against Tulip Siddiq.
Now, do you think this will have any consequences here in the UK? Obviously, we do not have an extradition arrangement with Bangladesh. Will this make any difference to Tulip Siddiq's political career here?
I believe this, as you know, that there's no extradition treaty between Bangladesh and UK, but Bangladesh government has previously mentioned that they would take up this case with the Interpol. So there might not be any change in the day-to-day life of Tulip Siddiq in UK, but definitely there will be international notices, and she might face international bans in certain countries which are very close to Bangladesh. And there is Bangladesh has also said, the authorities in Bangladesh have said they would arrest Tulip Siddiq if she enters Bangladesh. So there will be definitely international notices, but her day-to-day life in UK might not change much.
Saman Lateeb, thank you so much for your time this morning.
That is Keir Starmer's best mate in Parliament. Neighbouring MPs, they got in the same year, 2015. Was it odd that he made her anti-corruption minister?
Well, but, I mean, I'm not intimate with the situation in Bangladesh at all. I don't know whether or not these are trumped-up charges or whether there's something in it.
But it's interesting. But it's more headlines the Labour Party does not want.
Well, absolutely, and it's not a good look.
Now, up next, how would you feel living next to a house with 235,000 Christmas lights? We're going to be joined by the man behind that very idea.
But first, if you want to get away from the winter in search of some holiday sun, here's the forecast for some of our top European destinations.
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast. Hi there. If you're off to the Mediterranean in the next few days, there will be a lot of dry weather to be enjoyed, but there will also be some heavy showers in places. And across Iberia and Madeira, we have got this cold front pushing through on Tuesday, so some gusty winds and heavy rain for a time. Thunderstorms following to Portugal as well. Otherwise, across the central Med, there will be some scattered heavy showers and thunderstorms, but mostly dry across Greece and Turkey, some warm spells of sunshine here, and quite a changeable outlook for the rest of the week, but temperatures around average.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, this is Jubes & Co with you.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie is here. GB News, Britain's news channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection, tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Bold. They are under no illusion. Ray, are you a human trafficker? Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get us on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What we're going to do now is they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
isn't it?
no,
Because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word. Labour MP Tulip Siddique has been sentenced to 2 years in jail for corruption in Bangladesh. She's just spoken to reporters, and this is what she said.
I'm absolutely baffled by the whole thing. I've still had no contact whatsoever from the Bangladeshi authorities, despite them spreading malicious allegations against me for a year and a half now. I've tried to be responsible. I've engaged lawyers here in the UK who have repeatedly written to the Bangladeshi authorities, but they haven't responded. I then tried to engage a lawyer in Bangladesh itself, who went and tried to find out what was happening in court. They intimidated him and threatened him, and he withdrew. I then wrote to the leader of Bangladesh currently, who is Professor Muhammad Yunus, when he came to London, who has said publicly a few times that I'm guilty and had tried to smear my reputation. So I said to him, OK, let's sit down, let's have a coffee and let's talk about what I've done wrong, because I know I haven't done anything wrong. he declined to meet me. So there's been absolutely no summons sent to me. There's no charge sheet. I've had no correspondence from them. I'm not difficult to find. I'm a parliamentarian. All they had to do is send some papers to the House of Commons, to Parliament, and I would have responded. So I feel like I'm in some sort of Kafkaesque nightmare where I'm carrying on doing my day job, but on the other hand, I'm apparently being convicted in Bangladesh, and the only reason I know I'm being convicted is because I read it in the newspapers. So this is trial by media, which is deeply unfair.
Well, that was Tulip Siddiq, the Labour MP. Now, moving on, we'd love this story. A Christmas lights display in a village town near Bristol is raising money for the Taxi charity for military veterans.
Well, Richard Iles was inspired to build the 235,000 lights display for charity after several journeys to Normandy for D-Day services. And he's joining us now with the Vice President of the Taxi Charity for Veterans, Dick Goodwin. Good morning to you both. Thank you so much for coming in. I think we've seen some of the incredible lights earlier on in the show, and I think it's on your house, is that right?
It is on my house, yes.
So tell us about it.
So I decorate every year, and it's actually about 300,000 lights this year.
Wow.
So we erect a big scaffold around it and literally cover the whole house in lights.
How long does it take you to put that together?
It takes 4 weeks, and that's just working evenings and weekends, but it is a lot of work.
Your electric bill is going to be pretty high this year.
It's not too bad. It's about £200 to £300 for the 5 weeks it's on, so yeah, it's not too bad at all, really.
And so tell us about the charity, which is a fantastic cause. I know we've had some of your colleagues on the programme before.
Formed in 1948, 6 cab drivers sitting in a pub in Fulham wanted to take their mates out who'd been injured in the war, and it's gone on from there. Go to Worthing for an event every year, and then late as the veterans started getting old and stopping working themselves, we started taking them abroad to Normandy, to the Netherlands, take them to the Menai Gate, and started doing further and further trips with them, and now getting involved in a lot more things. We've invited up to the Battle of Britain Memorial flight the other week, just before the Lancaster went off for 3 years. So we're getting known, and it's just wonderful, wonderful.
What do you think of his effort? Pretty good, isn't it?
Well, I started life as an electrician, so I'd like to see his consumer unit.
Yeah.
I bet that's a bit around the electric meter.
What do your neighbours think? Are they thrilled as everybody?
To be honest, we get brilliant support from everybody. Yeah. And, you know, it's for a obviously, really good charity.
And why did you pick that charity? You've been to...
I go to Normandy every year.
Have you got a personal connection?
I haven't, no. I just got a lot of interest in World War II and the veterans, and I see the work these guys do, and I just think it's a fabulous charity.
It really is.
You know, the taxi drivers, the volunteers, everyone around the charity are just super.
I've got a route for the cab drivers because everyone's a volunteer. No one gets paid. They get fuel money.
Yeah.
And the London cab's such an iconic vehicle to see over in France. We go to the Netherlands, the Dutch police close the motorways for us.
Do they really?
Yeah, 60 miles of motorway shut. Yeah.
That's so nice.
Yeah, well, it is when you go past all the on-ramps and see everyone sitting there. They've been sitting there for about half an hour waiting to get on the motorway.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you so much. All the best.
Can I just say one thing?
We've got to go through that. I'm so sorry.
It's taxicharity.org. So please donate if you can. Thank you.
Taxicharity.org.
Thanks.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good morning and welcome to your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. It's much milder out there today, but it's a wet and windy start to the week with coastal gales, and there's an amber warning for heavy rain in place across parts of Wales this morning. So a wet and blustery picture for many parts of England and Wales, southern and eastern parts of Scotland as well. That rain particularly heavy out towards the west. The higher ground of Wales and western parts of England could easily see 100 millimetres of rain by the end of today. That's almost half a month's worth of rain falling in some spots. Brighter for some across parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland as well. Some sunshine here, but also a few showers. But it's the winds in the south that will also make it feel pretty unpleasant. Gales around the coasts. Despite temperatures reaching 13 or 14 degrees, it's going to feel pretty unpleasant. And there will be further spells of pretty heavy rain through the course of this evening, particularly across the West Country, parts of Wales as well. Those bright shades of colour on the map here indicate some really intense downpours, so some flooding on the roads and some transport disruption is quite